Have you ever checked into a place that felt off? Maybe the air was too still, the hallways too quiet, the front desk clerk smiling just a little too long. You brush it off. It's just your imagination, right? But what if, once you stepped inside, the doors refused to open? What if the windows showed nothing but an endless void, and the exit signs only led you deeper into a place that should not exist? Welcome to Ravenwood Grand, a hotel with no record of being built, no known owner, and a guest list full of people who never checked out. Those who enter may think they found a simple, charming old lodge, but soon they realize that the walls breathe, the mirrors whisper, and something unseen lurks in the dimly lit corridors. Tonight, a group of unsuspecting travelers will experience the night of their lives, or perhaps the last night they'll ever know. The question is, if you were trapped inside, would you find a way out? Or would the hotel claim you as its own? Let me know in the comments. What's the scariest place you've ever stayed in? If you're ready for a horrifying, pulse-pounding story, hit that like, subscribe, and share for more chilling tales. Now let's begin. The rain battered the windshield as Daniel Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The road ahead was barely visible, swallowed by thick fog rolling in like ghostly fingers stretching across the cracked asphalt. His GPS had stopped working miles ago, and with his phone on the brink of dying, he had no choice but to rely on the only sign he had seen for hours. Ravenwood Grand, 2 miles ahead. Beside him, his girlfriend, Emily, shifted in her seat, rubbing her arms as if the cold had seeped into her bones. "Are you sure this place is even open?" "It looks abandoned." "It's either this or spending the night in the car," Daniel muttered, his voice laced with exhaustion. Their road trip had taken an unexpected detour when a fallen tree blocked the highway. The nearest town was miles behind them, and with nightfall creeping in, the towering structure that emerged through the fog was their only hope for shelter. Ravenwood Grand stood like a forgotten relic, its grand Victorian architecture marred by time. Ivy curled around its stone pillars, and a massive rusted chandelier flickered dimly through the front windows. As they pulled into the driveway, the storm seemed to quiet for just a moment, as if the hotel itself had been waiting for them. Emily hesitated as Daniel turned off the engine. "I don't like this, Danny. It feels wrong." Before he could respond, a shadow moved behind the curtains on the second floor. Someone was inside. A crack of thunder urged them forward. With a sigh, Daniel grabbed their bags, and together they climbed the stone steps to the entrance. As soon as they reached the door, it groaned open, on its own. Emily swallowed. "That's not creepy at all," Daniel forced a chuckle. "Probably an old automatic sensor." The lobby was grand yet unsettling. A red velvet carpet stretched down the hall, lined with ancient paintings whose subjects seemed to watch their every move. The chandelier overhead flickered, casting warped shadows against the walls. The scent of old wood, dust, and something metallic filled the air. At the front desk, an elderly man with hollow eyes and a gaunt face greeted them with an eerie smile. His uniform was pristine, a contrast to the decayed surroundings. "Welcome to Ravenwood Grand," he said, his voice smooth but distant. "I see you found us on such an unfortunate night. The storm can be quite relentless." "Yeah, we got caught in it," Daniel said, trying to shake the unease creeping up his spine. "Do you have any rooms available?" The man slid a massive leather-bound ledger across the desk. His fingers were unnaturally long, his nails almost claw-like. "Sign here, Mr. Carter. Miss Emily." Emily's breath hitched. "How do you know our names?" The clerk's lips stretched into a thin smile. "It is my job to know my guests." Daniel hesitated before signing. The pen felt ice-cold in his grip. As soon as his name hit the paper, the lights flickered violently, and a gust of wind howled through the room, despite the doors being shut. The clerk gestured toward the staircase. "Room 306. Please enjoy your stay." Something about the way he said it made Emily shiver. As they climbed the steps, she whispered, "I have a bad feeling about this." Daniel nudged her playfully. "It's just an old hotel, probably not used to guests." But as they reached their room, the hallway seemed to stretch unnaturally long. The doors on either side were identical, yet the numbers didn't make sense. 305, 307, 302, 310. Emily stopped. Where's 306? Daniel turned back and forth, feeling dizzy. It should be here, but the numbers were shifting, rearranging themselves like a cruel joke. Just as panic started to rise in his chest, the door to their right creaked open, revealing a darkened room. The brass plate glinted. 306. That wasn't there before, Emily breathed. Let's just get inside, Daniel muttered, stepping in first. The room was elegant but unsettling. The four-poster bed was draped in crimson silk, and a fireplace flickered despite no visible wood. A grand mirror stood against the far wall, but instead of reflecting them, it showed the room as if it were empty. Emily refused to step inside. Danny, something isn't right. We need to leave. Before he could respond, the door slammed shut behind them. The lock clicked into place. Daniel rushed to it, twisting the handle. It's stuck! Emily pounded on the door. Hey, open up! A whisper slithered through the room. You checked in, but you'll never check out. Their breaths turned to mist in the suddenly freezing air. The chandelier above them swayed, casting twisted shadows that seemed to move on their own. Then the mirror darkened. Shapes writhed within the glass, forming grotesque figures. Hands, dozens of them, pressed against the surface from the other side, their fingers clawing, desperate to break through. Emily backed away, her voice barely above a whisper. Danny, the mirror. Before their eyes, the glass cracked, a jagged fissure forming down the center. A distorted reflection of Daniel turned its head, though Daniel himself had not moved. The reflection smirked. Then it stepped out. Daniel staggered backward as his own doppelganger emerged, eyes black as the void, lips stretching into something inhuman. It whispered in a voice that was not his own. You shouldn't have come here. The lights went out. Emily screamed. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and suffocating. The only sound was Emily's sharp breathing and the hammering of Daniel's heart. He couldn't see, couldn't move, only listen. Then a soft, dragging sound. Something was moving. A single flicker of light returned, casting long, warped shadows against the walls. The mirror still stood, but it was different now. The crack had widened, and within it, something shifted. A presence beyond the glass, watching. Emily's hand gripped Daniel's arm, nails digging into his skin. Danny, where did it go? Daniel turned toward where his twisted reflection had been standing. The space was empty, but the air felt wrong, heavy with the weight of something unseen. A whisper curled around them like a breath on the back of their necks. You don't belong here. Then the mirror shattered. Glass exploded outward in a storm of jagged shards. Daniel yanked Emily down just in time, shielding her as pieces embedded themselves in the walls and furniture. But in the dim glow of the fireplace, they saw it. Something was crawling out of the broken frame. A hand, pale and wrong, gripped the splintered edges. Another followed. A figure began pulling itself through the wreckage, its movements unnatural, as if its limbs had too many joints. The thing was wearing Daniel's face, but it was stretched, distorted. The smile was too wide, the eyes too hollow. Emily choked back a scream. Danny, that's not you! The imposter straightened, its head tilting at an unnatural angle. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, it took a step forward. Daniel stumbled back. Stay away! The thing only grinned wider, then it lunged. Daniel barely dodged, grabbing Emily's wrist as they scrambled toward the door. He twisted the handle, but it refused to budge. They were trapped. Behind them, the imposter's movements were erratic, twitching as if its body didn't fully understand how to function. It let out a low guttural chuckle, then whispered, You can't leave. The hotel won't let you? Daniel rammed his shoulder against the door. Let us out! Emily turned to the window. Danny, help me break this! They rushed toward it, but as soon as Daniel reached for the curtains, the glass turned black. It was no longer a window. It was an abyss, a void that pulsed like a heartbeat, as if something on the other side was breathing. Emily gasped and stumbled back. Oh my God! Then the darkness in the window blinked. A massive, unblinking eye stared back at them from the void, lidless and inhuman. The imposter behind them laughed. You're part of it now. Daniel grabbed a chair and hurled it at the window. The wood splintered on impact, but the glass didn't so much as crack. Instead, the eye moved closer. Then something pressed against the glass from the other side. A hand. Too large, too many fingers. Emily clutched Daniel's arm. "We need to find another way out." The imposter twitched violently, its body jerking like a broken puppet. Then it lunged again. Daniel and Emily ducked just in time, rushing toward the closet. Without thinking, Daniel yanked the door open and shoved Emily inside, slamming it behind them. Darkness. They pressed against the wooden walls, their breath shaky. Outside, the imposter's footsteps scraped across the floor. It was slow, deliberate, dragging its feet as if savoring the hunt. "Come out, come out. I just want to switch places." Emily squeezed Daniel's hand. "We can't stay here." Daniel scanned the cramped space, his eyes adjusting. Then he noticed something wrong. There was another door, a second door inside the closet. Emily saw it too. What is that?" It looked ancient, a small wooden frame with a rusted handle, as if it had been sealed away for years. Outside, the imposter stopped walking. It had heard them. "I know you're in there." Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed the handle and yanked the hidden door open, only to find a staircase leading downward. Emily's voice trembled. "That doesn't make sense." They were on the third floor. There shouldn't be stairs leading down from inside a closet. But behind them, the door rattled as the imposter scratched at it. "No more hiding. I'm coming in." Daniel grabbed Emily's hand and stepped into the unknown. The moment they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them. The stairs spiraled downward into complete darkness, stretching into infinity. Daniel swallowed. "We don't have a choice." Emily nodded, gripping his hand tighter. Together they descended into the depths of Ravenwood Grand. The stairs beneath their feet felt wrong. The wood was too smooth, too polished, as if it had never been touched by time. The air was damp, carrying a scent of mold and something far worse. Something decayed. Daniel's grip on Emily's hand tightened as they continued downward. There was no railing, only a yawning abyss stretching below them. The dim light from the room above had faded, swallowed by the overwhelming darkness. Emily's breath came fast and shallow. "Danny, this doesn't make sense. We were on the third floor. How can there be stairs leading down?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. Every instinct in his body screamed to turn back, but the door behind them had vanished the moment it shut. There was only down. Then the whispering started, soft at first, like a distant breeze. But soon it grew, a chorus of voices, overlapping, desperate. Some pleaded, others wept, and a few laughed. Emily clutched his arm. "Do you hear that?" Daniel nodded, his throat dry. He didn't want to acknowledge it. He didn't want to know what was waiting at the bottom, but something was. The air turned colder, the whispers shifting into hissing, unintelligible murmurs. Shadows flickered along the stairwell, crawling like living things. Then the step beneath Emily creaked. The voices stopped. Silence. An unbearable silence, stretching too long, pressing against their ears. Then, a screech. It came from below, a sound so shrill, so unnatural that Daniel's stomach twisted in terror. The noise slithered through the air like nails scraping across glass. Emily gasped. "We have to go back." She turned, only to find the stairs above them were gone. Daniel's stomach dropped. The path they had descended was no longer there. Only an endless void loomed behind them, swallowing everything whole. Emily shook her head violently. No, no, this isn't real." Daniel grabbed her by the shoulders. "We keep moving forward. There has to be a way out." She hesitated, then nodded. They descended faster, the steps never ending beneath their feet. The air grew thicker, like moving through water. Then they saw it. A door. It was old, rotting, barely hanging onto its rusted hinges. Carved into the wood was a single word. "Welcome." Daniel exhaled, reaching for the handle. But just as his fingers brushed it, a thud echoed from behind them. Then another, and another. Footsteps. Something was following them. Emily's eyes widened. "Danny, open it." Now! The footsteps sped up, a relentless, pounding rhythm descending the stairs at an unnatural speed. Daniel twisted the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It's locked, Emily banged against the door. No, 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 please! The footsteps grew closer, too close. Then, a hand wrapped around Daniel's ankle. Cold, clawed, wrong. Daniel kicked back violently, his foot connecting with something solid. A hiss filled the air, but whatever had grabbed him didn't let go. Emily turned, her scream catching in her throat. A figure loomed in the darkness. Its limbs were elongated, its body twitching as if struggling to remain in its current form. Its face was obscured, but its mouth, too wide, too jagged, smiled. Daniel struggled, kicking harder. Emily, help me! Emily grabbed a piece of rusted metal from the floor and swung wildly. The moment it struck the creature's arm, it shrieked, a horrible, inhuman sound. The grip on Daniel's ankle loosened, and he stumbled back. The door, it was open. Without thinking, they lunged forward, falling through. The moment they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them. Silence. Then, a heartbeat. Daniel gasped for air, his pulse hammering in his ears. Emily lay beside him, trembling. They had landed in a hallway, but it was not the hotel. The walls were old brick, cracked and covered in strange, pulsing veins. The ceiling was high, disappearing into blackness. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, flickering lanterns casting sickly yellow light. Emily sat up, her voice barely a whisper. Where are we? Daniel didn't know. But they weren't alone. At the far end of the hallway, figures began to emerge from the shadows. Some crawled, some walked with broken, twisted limbs. All of them stared, and then they started moving toward them. The air in the hallway was thick, wrong. A stench of decay filled their lungs, heavy and suffocating. Emily clutched Daniel's arm, her fingers digging into his skin. Danny, they're getting closer. He didn't need to be told. The figures at the end of the corridor were advancing, their movements twitchy and unnatural. Some dragged themselves across the floor, while others walked with grotesque, broken limbs that bent the wrong way. Their eyes, if they had any, were hollow. Daniel took a shaky step back. We have to run. The figures lurched forward. A scream erupted from one of them, a raw, unnatural wail that made Daniel's stomach twist. The walls trembled, bricks cracking as if the sound itself carried weight. Emily gasped, grabbing his hand. Go! Go now! They ran. The hallway stretched ahead of them, impossibly long. No doors, no turns. Just an endless path lined with flickering lanterns that barely illuminated the nightmare behind them. Daniel glanced back. The figures were faster now. Their bodies jerked violently as they picked up speed, their twisted forms moving far too quickly. One of them dropped to all fours and sprinted. Emily choked on a scream. They're gaining on us! Daniel pushed himself harder, his breath ragged. The lanterns around them flickered wildly, shadows twisting and stretching like they were alive. Then something grabbed Emily's hair. She was yanked back, a sharp cry escaping her lips. Daniel skidded to a stop, heart pounding. Emily! One of the creatures had hold of her, its elongated fingers tangled in her hair. Its face was inches from hers, its mouth a gaping black void. It didn't breathe. It only stared. Emily struggled, her nails clawing at its arm. Let me go! Daniel acted on instinct. He grabbed one of the rusted lanterns from the wall and swung. The moment the metal made contact, the creature shrieked. A horrible, wet sound. Its body convulsed, and its grip loosened. Emily stumbled forward and Daniel yanked her free. The creature screeched again, but now the others had closed in. They were too close. Daniel turned, dragging Emily forward. There has to be a way out. They kept running, their lungs burning. The hallway twisted, the walls narrowing like they were closing in. Then, a door, at the very end of the corridor. Emily saw it first. There! They sprinted toward it, but just as Daniel reached for the handle, the floor collapsed beneath them. They fell into darkness, fell for what felt like an eternity. Then, impact. The air was knocked from Daniel's lungs as he hit the ground. The world around him spun, blurred and distorted. Pain pulsed through his body, but he forced himself up. Emily, a groan nearby. I'm here. Daniel crawled toward her, relief flooding his chest when he saw her sitting up. She was shaking but alive. He looked around. They had landed in a different part of the hotel, a grand dining hall, vast and eerily untouched. Chandeliers hung overhead, casting a dim golden glow. The walls were lined with tall mirrors, their surfaces warped and cracked. In the long dining table, it was set for a feast. Plates of food sat untouched, steam still rising from the dishes. Emily swallowed hard. Danny, this place shouldn't be here. Daniel's gut twisted. Something was wrong. Then the chair at the head of the table moved, scraping against the floor. Slowly, deliberately, they froze. And then, from the shadows, something took a seat. A figure, tall, elegant, dressed in old-fashioned attire. But its face, it was blurred, a smear of features that refused to stay in place. The figure lifted a glass of deep red liquid, and it smiled. Welcome to dinner. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The figure at the head of the table exuded an overwhelming presence. Something unnatural, something wrong. It didn't move like a person. Its motions were too smooth, too deliberate, as if the very idea of being human was a costume it had learned to wear. Emily clutched Daniel's arm, her nails digging into his skin. Danny, what the hell is that? The figure raised its glass in a slow, almost ceremonial gesture. The liquid inside sloshed unnaturally, moving in thick, sluggish swirls that defied gravity. Not wine, not anything human. Its voice came like a whisper through static. A toast to new guests. The chandelier lights flickered, a wet, sickening squelch. Daniel turned his head toward the table and nearly vomited. The food was moving. The roasted meats writhed, bubbling and twisting, as if something underneath the skin was trying to push through. The fruit on the platters pulsed like beating hearts. The golden brown loaves of bread cracked open, revealing teeth where crumbs should be. And the worst part? The plates weren't empty. Rotting hands clawed from beneath the food, fingers twitching, nails scraping against porcelain. Emily screamed. Daniel grabbed her hand, yanking her back. Run! They turned, bolting for the massive double doors at the far end of the dining hall. Their footsteps echoed as the chandeliers flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows along the walls. But the doors didn't open. Daniel threw his weight against them. Nothing. They wouldn't budge. Emily pounded on the wood. Let us out! Behind them, the sound of scraping chairs. Daniel turned his head slowly. The guests were standing up. All of them. Figures in lavish suits and elegant gowns, faces blurred and shifting, limbs twitching in unnatural jerks. Their heads tilted at odd angles, as if listening to something only they could hear. Then, they moved, not walked, glided, across the floor, closing in. Emily yanked on Daniel's sleeve. Danny, please! Then a whisper, right by Daniel's ear. You shouldn't have come. Something cold and skeletal brushed against his neck. He spun, swinging his fist blindly. There was nothing there. The figures were closer now, surrounding them. Their hands reached out, too long, too thin, fingers like sharpened bones. Daniel grabbed Emily, pulling her toward the table. Under! Go! They dove beneath the massive dining table, crawling between the grotesque, writhing plates. The air was thick with decay, a putrid stench clinging to their lungs. Above them, the figures moved, their footsteps eerily silent. Daniel's pulse pounded. He squeezed Emily's hand, signaling her to stay quiet. Then, something grabbed his ankle. Cold, clawed, tight. Daniel kicked violently, but the grip didn't loosen. His heart slammed against his ribs as he turned his head. A face stared back, a guest, crawling beneath the table. Its body was twisted, limbs bent at unnatural angles, its face a blurred mess of smudged features. But the mouth was wide, grinning. A whisper slithered from its lips. "Join us!" Daniel screamed. Emily grabbed a plate, one of the ones with the clawing hands, and smashed it into the creature's head. The thing shrieked, its voice a horrible mix of static and human agony. It convulsed, body twisting into itself. Then it vanished. Gone. The moment it disappeared, the dining hall shook violently. The chandeliers swayed. The mirrors on the wall shattered all at once. And then a doorway appeared, right at the end of the hall. Emily gasped. "There! Danny, go!" They scrambled out from under the table, dodging the frozen, twitching guests. Daniel sprinted, yanking Emily forward. The doorway was closing. The air howled as if the hotel itself was screaming. Daniel threw himself forward, just as the door slammed shut behind them. Darkness, silence. Daniel collapsed onto his hands and knees, gasping for air. His entire body trembled. Emily was beside him, equally shaken. "Well, where are we now?" Daniel looked up. They were in another hallway. But this one was filled with doors. Endless doors, lining both sides. And each door had a name carved into it. Names of guests. Names that had been here before. Then Daniel's stomach dropped, because at the very end of the hall, there were two new doors, and they had his and Emily's names on them. Daniel's breath hitched as he stared at the two doors at the end of the hallway. His name carved into one, Emily's into the other. The engraving was fresh, the wood around the letters still splintered. Emily swallowed hard. "Danny, what does this mean?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The hallway was impossibly long, stretching into darkness. The walls were lined with hundreds of doors, each one bearing a name, some old and faded, others fresh like theirs. The air was thick, charged with something unseen but present. And then the whispers started, low, indistinct, voices from behind the doors. Emily took a shaky step back. "Danny, the names, these are all guests, aren't they?" Daniel reached out, running his fingers over a door beside him. The wood was warm, almost alive. Then it moved, a soft thump, like something pressing from the other side. Daniel jerked his hand away. Emily grabbed his arm, her voice urgent. "We need to leave. Now!" A click. Daniel's head snapped up. The doors at the end, the ones with their names, had unlocked. The whispers grew louder, like a chorus of unseen mouths pressing against the walls, begging, warning, laughing. Then, one of the older doors burst open. A figure crawled out. Daniel barely had time to react before the thing lunged forward. It was human once. Now its skin was paper thin and stretched too tight over its bones. Its mouth was torn at the corners, pulled into a horrific smile that didn't belong. Empty black sockets stared out, unblinking. Emily screamed. The figure twitched, then lunged. Daniel shoved her aside and kicked the thing in the chest. It was too light, too hollow. It hit the floor and scuttled like an insect, moving in unnatural jerks. Then, more doors creaked open. Hands, faces, shapes slipping from the dark. They were all coming out. Daniel grabbed Emily's wrist and yanked her toward their doors. "Go! Go now!" Emily hesitated, but the things were moving too fast. The hallway shifted, warping into a spiraling tunnel of shadows. Daniel threw his door open and shoved Emily through hers. Then, darkness. Daniel's room. The air inside was stale, suffocating. Daniel stumbled forward, his heart hammering. He wasn't in a hotel room. He was in his childhood home. The wallpaper was peeling. The wooden floors creaked beneath his weight. The hallway stretched into an eerie dimness. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. A voice echoed from the shadows. "Danny, come to the kitchen, sweetheart." His blood ran cold. That voice. That was his mother's voice, but she was dead. Daniel turned his head slowly, his breath shaking. The kitchen light was on, casting a long, unnatural shadow on the wall. And then she stepped out. His mother, but not. Her neck was bent at an impossible angle, her eyes sunken, lips stitched together with black thread. Her body twitched unnaturally, bones cracking with each step. And when she spoke, the stitches tore open. "Come eat, Danny." Her mouth stretched too wide, revealing rows of jagged, rotting teeth. Daniel ran. He bolted down the hallway, heart hammering against his ribs. The walls shifted, pulsed. The house twisted, turning into a maze of endless corridors. No way out, no escape. And then, the whispers started again. He won't get out. He's already ours. A hand shot out from the floor, clawing at his ankle. Daniel screamed. Then, darkness swallowed him. Emily's room. Emily gasped as she hit the floor, disoriented. She wasn't in a hotel. She was in a graveyard. The air was damp, cold. The scent of wet earth and decay filled her nostrils. Tombstones surrounded her, stretching in every direction. Then, she saw the names. Daniel, her own, all the guests from the hotel. Something moved behind the graves. Emily's chest tightened. She turned slowly. A shadow rose from the ground, tall, featureless, watching. Then it rushed toward her. Emily screamed, and the graveyard collapsed into darkness. Somewhere in the hotel, the figure at the head of the dining table smiled. It lifted its glass again. The liquid inside swirled, forming Daniel and Emily's faces. The hotel was still playing with them, because the night wasn't over yet. Daniel woke with a violent gasp, his body drenched in sweat. The suffocating darkness pressed in on all sides, and the air smelled of damp rot and something metallic, something like blood. He wasn't in the hallway anymore. He wasn't even sure he was still in the hotel. A low hum vibrated through the floor beneath him, pulsing like a heartbeat. The wall, they weren't solid. They shifted, breathing in and out like the hotel itself was alive. Then a whisper, not from ahead, not from behind, but from inside his own head. "You can't leave, Daniel." His stomach clenched. The voice was his own. Then, a sound, a slow, dragging noise from the darkness. Daniel turned sharply, scanning the shifting shadows. Something was coming. Some things were coming. The air grew thick with the scent of rotting flesh. Then, they stepped into view. Figures. Their bodies were twisted, elongated. Their faces were familiar. Too familiar, because they were the same guests from the dining hall. But now, they were worse. Their skin was melting, slipping off their bones in thick, wet chunks. Their eyes dripped like candle wax, leaving hollow sockets filled with writhing black worms. Their teeth, too many, too sharp, chattered as they smiled. Daniel stumbled backward. His breath came in rapid, ragged gasps. "Not real! Not real! Not real!" One of them lurched forward. It spoke in a voice that was half static, half scream. "Daniel, stay with us." Then, it ran, straight at him. Daniel bolted. His heart slammed against his ribs as he tore down the endless corridor, the walls shifting, stretching, warping. The guests followed. Their movements were wrong, too fast, too jerky. Their limbs bent in ways they shouldn't. Daniel's lungs burned. His muscles screamed. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. The hallway twisted suddenly, throwing him off balance. He tripped, slamming into a door. His door, the one with his name. It swung open on its own. Daniel had no choice. He plunged inside. Emily's nightmare. Emily hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. She scrambled to her feet, heart racing. The graveyard was gone. She was now in a mirror-lined room. Hundreds of reflections surrounded her. But something was wrong. The reflections weren't mirroring her. They were watching her. She took a slow step forward. The reflections didn't move. Emily's blood turned to ice. Then one of the reflections smiled. Not a normal smile. A jagged, unnatural grin, stretching across its entire face. Then, another, and another, until every single reflection was grinning at her. Then, they stepped forward. Out of the mirrors, Emily screamed. She turned, running for the only exit. But the reflections were everywhere, and they were laughing, not in her voice, in the voice of something else, something hungry. Emily threw herself against the door. It wouldn't open. The reflections closed in. Then, one reached out and touched her arm. The moment it made contact, Emily's vision exploded into darkness, and she was falling. The hotel's plan. Somewhere within the depths of the hotel, the figure at the head of the dining table chuckled. It lifted its hand, and the walls rippled, shifting the maze yet again. The guests would never escape. Not tonight. Not ever. The hotel was still playing with them, because the final act had yet to come, and the night was far from over. Daniel landed hard, his body hitting the cold, unyielding floor. His ears rang, his vision blurred, but he forced himself up. His breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. Where was he? The walls around him were different now. Tall, ancient, covered in veins of pulsing black tendrils. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something metallic. Blood. He turned, pulse pounding. A single door stood in front of him. Unlike the other doors, this one wasn't marked with his name. It was marked with Emily's. His stomach twisted. Emily. His voice barely rose above a whisper. No answer. Daniel stepped forward, hesitating for only a moment before pushing the door open. The sight inside stole his breath. Emily stood in the center of the room, but she wasn't alone. Mirrors surrounded her in a perfect circle, their glass rippling like liquid. And inside them, her reflections twisted and convulsed. Some were laughing, others were sobbing, and one was watching him, not Emily's reflection. Something else. Its eyes were pitch black, bottomless voids. Its lips curled into a smile so wide it split its face. Then, it moved, not in the mirror, into the room. Emily screamed. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing her wrist just as the thing reached for her. The room shattered, the heart of the hotel. They landed in darkness, but they weren't alone. A figure stood before them, seated at the endless dining table. The man from the beginning, the one who had welcomed them into the hotel. But now his skin was peeling, revealing something underneath, something ancient and monstrous. His voice was calm, too calm. You came here willingly. Daniel and Emily staggered back. The walls pulsed, the shadows shifting, forming countless figures. The guests, their eyes were blank, their faces stretched into permanent, grotesque smiles. Trapped. Daniel's stomach plummeted. The host's grin widened. You belong to the hotel now. Then, the walls moved. The shadows reached for them. Daniel grabbed Emily's hand, and they ran. The hallways twisted and changed, turning into a maze of horror. The hotel wouldn't let them go. Then, they saw it. The front door, wide open, freedom. But between them and escape stood the guests. Their limbs twisted unnaturally, faces flickering between past and present. And behind them, the host loomed, his true form unraveling into pure darkness. You can't leave. Daniel didn't hesitate. He charged forward. Emily followed. The guests screeched, their bodies distorting as they lunged. Daniel shoved through them, pain ripping through his body as claw-like hands tore at him. Emily screamed as something grabbed her ankle, pulling her back. Daniel turned. His heart stopped. A hand rose from the darkness, gripping Emily's wrist. The host's voice echoed around them. One of you must stay. Daniel didn't think, didn't hesitate. He grabbed Emily, yanking her with every ounce of strength he had. She broke free, and they both fell forward, through the door, into the night. Silence. Daniel gasped, his body shaking as he lay sprawled across the wet pavement. Emily was beside him, breathing hard, eyes wide with shock. They were outside. The hotel was gone. No towering structure, no glowing windows, just an empty lot. Emily turned to him, her voice hoarse. Was it ever real? Daniel didn't answer, because deep inside, he knew the truth. It was real, and somewhere, in another town, on another street, the hotel was still waiting, still watching for its next guest.